In this how-to video, I'm going to show you how to make an obstacle course using our new template toys. So here we are in our starting scene. Template toys all exist under our templates menu in this bottom kind of asset browser. So the ones we're going to be using are a checkpoint, a trampoline, a launch pad, and these three are basically the core set, but we're also going to use an NPC and some others as well. And they're very easy to use. You just drag them into the game like this, go back into the playing view, and you can see the NPC can say stuff to us. Launchpad launches us into the air, trampoline bounces us, and the checkpoint will save the user's progress as they go through your game. So here is a wider view of our starting area. And you can see, as well as this more detailed spawn position, I also have this large black block here. And this is to represent kind of the destination where the player is attempting to get to. And I need some other blocks in between to create the obstacle course. And I'm going to use this block here. And I'm going to duplicate it by holding down Control and left click and dragging out this block. And it will let me create a copy of it. So very easily just create one and then a second with enough space in between. The next stage is to add some checkpointing in there. And to do that, I'm going to use our checkpoint template toy. I'm just going to drag it into the scene and drop it. If I zoom in a little, you can see this arrow here shows its facing direction. So I know I want to spin it around so that the player will respawn facing the challenge they just failed. And I'm going to place these again in exactly the same way. One here, line it up in the right direction, and a final one here. Now the important thing with the checkpoints is to make sure that they have enough space around them, because the player is going to be respawned in this position. And so if you have other objects that are in the way, the player won't fit and they won't respawn correctly. So make sure you have a bit of space around them. Okay, for the first stage, we're going to use our trampoline template toy. And first of all, we need some platforms to put these on. And so for the sake of consistency, we're going to use one of our big giant platforms, scaled right down. And if we drag out a trampoline, you can see how its scale is relative to that. Right, so we have this platform. We can control click both elements to select them together, and then they will move together. We just back our camera out slightly. We can bring this up into roughly the right space. Let's have a look at it from several angles. Okay. So the other thing we can do with our stuff selected, we can control click it to duplicate it. And we can use this to line things up nicely like so. And then we can also select all of these together and control click to duplicate them again and bring them across. And we can line them up so that we can create a staggered formation. And what we want to do now is rotate these so that they face towards one another. And we can do that just with this blue arrow. And so we have two alignment modes as well. So this is in the local space of the objects, and this is in the world space. We want to work in this instance, in the local space of the objects, so that we can rotate them around like this. And we'll do the same thing on this side. Again, nice and easily, rotate them towards each other. And the next thing we want to do is to align them so that when you hit one of these, you bounce and hit the one on the next side, because you'll be sent in this direction currently. And we're going to do that by selecting two things, pressing R to change into our world space rotation, and I'll show you the difference between the two in a second. When I rotate like this, then this points us towards, lets us rotate the object kind of around the green line sticking upwards. Whereas if we do it in the local rotation and select what we think would be the same handle, it's doing it around the blue axis, which is actually, when we look at it, not in the vertical one. So do the vertical one, and you can see it's like so. So it's good to know and good to experiment with whether you want your rotation to be in the local space or in the world space, and it varies depending on what you're trying to do. So with our first stage done, I'm going to move on and do our second stage now. And we're going to use the launch pad. I'm going to have a launch pad on a platform on this side and a moving platform on this side. And the goal of the player will be to time their use of the launch pad so that they land on the moving platform. First of all, I know also that I want a bit more space here, so I'm going to move the checkpoint out of the way. And I'm going to find a nice platform voxel object. I'm going to place this into the game and rotate it around on both axes. So one of the things with our voxel objects is like this looks like you can run through it straight away. But if I go back into game playing mode, I will collide against it. And that's because to enable full voxel collision, our objects need to be of a certain scale relative to the player. And right now this is too small to have full voxel collision. If I scale it right up, even bigger. Now it's big enough and I can run and collide against each of the individual voxels. I can get to the end here. I can select the launchpad template, and as we do in all other situations, we just drag it in, drop it down. We can spin it around, and for the sake of making it look cooler, I think it needs to be pushed up a little bit, and then also raised just so that it's flush with the platform. And now if I stand on it, well, remembering actually that I need to respawn here, I'll go trigger the checkpoint. And I will fire myself across into the void. So we'll go across to the other side and find something platform-like. Again, I've done this before, so I know what I want. I'm actually using this roof of a train carriage, and I'm going to align it with the shape of the level. I'm just going to get in close so I can get this more accurate because I want it to move forwards and backwards. That's roughly in the right spot. And I'm going to push it all the way over to this side. And I think I may also make it slightly bigger so it's an easier target to land in. And then I'm going to use a behavior on it. So I'm going to use the move forwards and backwards behavior. Drop it on it, and we can see it moves forwards and backwards a little bit just now. I want it to do as much as possible. So it's good to play with these things whilst the game is running, because it lets you see visually what you're doing and adjust them and so forth. And so if we go back into the game playing, we now have our full problem for the player set up. We just need to make sure it's actually possible to time this. So I think the timing was wrong, and also the force on the launch pad was wrong as well. So we can go back in, and this impulse is currently 1000, so if we make it 1400, that should maybe help things. And I think I need to jump just before it starts coming back. And I think the impulse there was perfect. The problem was just my timing for the jump. So here we go, ready for the final stage. And the idea here is going to be a parkour-y segment, so some narrow beams to walk along. We're going to use some of the behaviors to make them spin. And we're going to use the trampoline and the launch pads to provide some alternate routes. I'm going to show you how I did that in a time lapse. And all I'm doing is exactly what I just demonstrated, copying these segments along, making some of them spin, arranging them in space so that they kind of make sense. And then I'm trying to make an alternate pathway so that the player has some like decision making to do. You could imagine like you're racing against a friend, and you're gonna go straight ahead and try and smash through the spinning elements, and they might try using the template toy elements like the trampoline and the launch pad there to get across to the other side. So we've finished all 3 stages of our obstacle course. And next up, I'm going to add a little bit of story. But I'm just going to put in an NPC. And I'm going to call him Mefric. And he's going to say, get to the end for awesome prizes. I can put this girl in. And I can call her Katie. Whoops, not Katie's. And she's going to say, make sure you take your time to get this right. And on the last one, we can use the final NPC we have. And we can call them something made up. Shara. And Shara is going to say, those beams look mighty rickety. And we can end things as well. It's always good to give the player a reward when they've done well by completing your obstacle course. So we'll put our starting character here. And they were called Mefric. And they're going to say, what took you so long? Mocking you for being slow. And what I'm going to do, just to give the players something cool at the end, is to set up some stations where they can try out some of the other cool template toys. So I'm going to find Flints. And I'm going to use this one because it looks kind of neat. And drag out a few copies. Just along. And then I'm going to go into the templates. And I'm going to give them the cake to grow, the drink to shrink, jump boost, and the speed sneakers. So now when you complete the obstacle course, you can pick up one of these things. And if other people are playing, you can go back and hassle them with your newfound skills, being giant and running very fast. So the next thing to do is to go through and add detail into our obstacle course. And it's all about creating a nice kind of like pathway and experience. So far, all we've concentrated on is the mechanical parts of building the obstacle course. And now we're making it aesthetically pretty to look at and helping it tell whatever story we want to tell. So this is the final obstacle course, and this game and all of the intermediate games that I went through to build this are available on .Big Bang right now, and they're linked in the video description below. You can use any of these as inspiration to build your own obstacle course from, or you can start from scratch and build something completely different. If you get stuck and need some help, or just want to hang out with a bunch of cool creators, you should join our Discord. The link is in the description below. So just get out there and start making games.